Hello! Today we're going to be making a summer tea top, and I do want to go ahead and note that this is an easy pattern, but it might not be best for beginners because I'm using a thin one weight yarn with a 6mm hook to achieve the drapey effect that I want. Now you can play around with different yarn weights and hook sizes, but if you want to get like the exact same kind of effect that I am, it is hard to work with thinner yarn and a bigger needle whenever you are a beginner. Unless you have like some experience, you kind of understand seeing stitches, because it's just harder to see things whenever it's that much thinner. Of course, if you're a adventurous beginner, go ahead. I just want to make note of this so you know before you get started if this is a project for you. I'm using a one weight yarn. This is Summer Nights, and I'll have it linked in the description box below. It is a discontinued yarn, but any really thin yarn should work well for this pattern. And I'm using a 6mm hook to get the drapey effect that I want. You'll also need some scissors and a yarn needle. And just a quick note, this pattern is made of 2 panels, the exact same, and we will be sewing up the shoulders, leaving a gap for the arms and sewing up the sides. To show the stitch pattern, I'm just going to use this thicker yarn. This is a weight 3 and this 4.5mm crochet hook, because I think it'll be easier to see what I'm doing. So you're going to start off by leaving a tail long enough to weave in and make a slip knot. And whenever I make my slip knot, my tail always gets longer, so just random note if you make them the same way I do. And we're going to be using foundation single crochets. We're going to chain 2, and into the first chain that I made, I like going into the back bumps. I'm just going to put my hook through, then I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Now this is going to represent the chain part of your foundation single crochet. So we're going to yarn over and pull through the first loop on our hook. So we just made that chain part. And then to make the single crochet, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2. And that is your first foundation single crochet complete. And to make the next one, you're going to turn, well, let me pull this out. You're going to be turning it, and it's a little bit hard to see, but these 2 strands that kind of twist over each other, you're going to go under both of those. So I'm going to put my hook back in. So I'm just going to go under both of those, and I usually need to use my fingers to help the yarn move onto my hook. Okay. And once you've done that, you're going to yarn over and do what you did earlier and just pull up a loop. And to make that chain part, we're going to yarn over and pull through the first loop on our hook. And to make that single crochet part, we're going to yarn over and pull through the 2 loops left on our hook. And again, we're going to twist it right here and see the 2 strands that kind of cross, one crosses over the other a little bit. And we're going to be going under both of those. So that's the first, and then the second. Then one more time, you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop, make that chain base, and then your single crochet. And you're just going to make those until you have an odd number of stitches. Now the reason why we are doing a foundation single crochet as the beginning instead of a chain is because it's a bit stretchier than a chain, and since this is going to be at the bottom of our top, it's just nicer to have it be more looser and flowier and not tight at the bottom. And to figure out how long you want your chain to be, it really depends on how wide you want your top to be. You can go by your bust measurement and divide it in half. You could maybe measure your shoulders. I had already made one and I didn't remember what my original measurements were based off of, but I just measured the top that I had and it was 18 inches wide. Granted, as you work your panel, it will shrink quite a bit. Mine shrank about between 2 and 3 inches for each panel. I think one was a little over 2 inches and the other one was right about 3. So just keep that in mind whenever you're working this. And now that I've finished my little sample swatch, I believe I have 11 stitches. I'm just going to chain 1 and turn, and into this very first single crochet, I'm going to make a single crochet, and then I'm also going to put a double crochet in that very same stitch. Then I'm going to skip the next single crochet, and in the next one, I'm going to put a single crochet and then a double crochet. Then I'm going to skip one and then put a single crochet and double crochet into the next. And I'm sure you got the idea by now, but you're just going to skip one, single crochet, double crochet in the same stitch, skip one, single crochet, and double crochet in the same stitch. And then whenever you have 2 stitches left, you're going to skip one and then just place 1 single crochet in that last one. And now for row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And it's almost the exact same as row 1. It's just we now have double crochet stitches in the mix. So in that first single crochet, we're going to put a single crochet and a double crochet. And then we're going to skip the double crochet, and into the next single crochet, we're going to put a single crochet and a double crochet. So you can think of this in either one of 2 ways. So you can either think of skip one and then work single crochet and double crochet into the next, or you can think I'm just putting a single crochet and a double crochet into every single crochet stitch until you reach the end. And that's personally how I like to think of it. So we're almost at the end. Now that I'm at the end, I just have 2 stitches left. I have this double crochet stitch, and then the single crochet is the very last one. And I'm just going to put 1 single crochet into that last single crochet. And then that's the stitch repeat. You're just going to keep repeating row 2 until it is as long as you want it. You can make yours cropped, or you can make yours full length like mine, however you want. And like I said before, your panels will shrink as you keep crocheting. So definitely make sure your initial foundation chain is, you know, maybe 2 or 3 inches wider than you actually want it to be. And then as you keep crocheting and it kind of dips in and whatnot, you won't panic. But even if it shrinks in a bit too much, keep in mind also that crochet stretches. So it's all good. It should still fit, even if it's just a little bit smaller than you originally planned. But yeah, I'm just gonna meet you whenever you have both of your panels finished. To fasten off at the end of each of your panels, I like to chain 2 to make sure it's extra secure, and then I pull it tight so that it forms this really tight knot. And I leave a pretty long tail because I want to just use this tail to sew my shoulders together. Now, if you want to slip stitch or single crochet them together, you can leave a shorter tail, but this is just how I like to do it. So now that I have both my panels finished, I'm just going to lay them both down with right sides facing in the middle. So this is the right side facing up, and then the next one, the right side is going to be facing down. To sew the shoulders, you're just going to thread your yarn needle with that long tail you left, and you're going to put that needle under both of the single crochet stitches on either side on each panel, and then you're just going to pull it all the way through. You're going to do the same, match up the double crochet stitches, go under both and pull it through, and then again find those single crochets, pull it through, and mine are actually kind of getting caught down here, so I'm just going to pull those up, pull it a little bit tighter. Then I'm going to go under the double crochets and just keep doing that until it's in about as far as you want it to be, and repeat the same thing to the other side, which I already have this one done. You're going to want to make sure you got the same amount of stitches on each side sewed up, and then you're going to try it on and see if you like where that neckline is. If you don't, you can either take away or add stitches, but don't weave in your ends until the neckline's the width that you want it to be. So I figured out where I want my armholes to be. I put stitch markers in to try it on, and it fits really well. So now that I've got that figured out, I'm just going to show you how to seam up the sides. Something I thought I should let you know is how I count my rows, because let's be honest, it is a bit confusing to look and try and figure out which one's which. You could look and just count all the ones slanted to that side and just be like 1, 2, 3, and then just double at the end. I like counting from the sides, and as you see, we got these lovely little bumps, which is our chain 1s, and there's 1 for every 2 rows, because, you know, every other row, the bumps on the other side. So you want to find your first bump, and then you're just going to count it and say 1, next is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And when you reach the end, you're going to multiply it by 2. And for me, I actually had, let's see, actually, I'm pretty sure I had 42 of these bumps, and then it ended on another row. So I had like 42 bumps plus 1 row, and that's how I was counting. And these are also going to be easy. These are also going to be helpful whenever you're sewing things together. But I wanted to tell you that because that's also how I make sure my sides are even, going down to where I marked for my, well, going down to where I marked where I wanted the bottom of my armhole to be. So I just held it on either side of the seam. And the seam can be a little bit hard to find, but if you're looking, you can tell that this looks different than the rest, and you just kind of go up the middle, find where that is. And I did not include this bump. Oh, it's out of focus. I didn't include this little bump right here on either side. So I started my counting with this one going down, and I actually did 14 down on each side. And then to do the other one, I flipped my work around, found that center part, again, not counting this very center bump, and then I counted 14 down on this side, and that's, I put my stitch marker in the 14th one. So hopefully that helps somebody, because I was struggling trying to count these, and then I looked, I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty distinct. So yeah, just a handy little tip. To seam up your sides, you're first going to use that little bump trick that I showed you earlier, and you're going to match the bumps on either side on the, like that very first one. So we're gonna basically each bump counts as 2 rows, and you're going to, for single crochets, you're going to be putting 1 single crochet per row. So for each bump section, you're going to need to have 2 single crochets, because we're doing a single crochet seam. So you're going to insert your hook into the bottom half of that bump area on both sides. Then you're going to take your yarn, put it on that hook. Then you're just going to pull it through and chain 1, and then you're going to go back into those same spots that you went earlier on both panels, and you're going to make a single crochet. Then you're going to go above the bump, and then you have this smaller loop right here, and it's kind of underneath of these 2, I don't know, you know, these 2 pieces of yarn right here. I don't really know what to call it. And then you're going to make another single crochet. Then we're at our next bump, and this is where all of them start looking the exact same. So you got this big loop that you go into on both panels, single crochet, and then you have that same smaller loop with those 2 pieces of yarn right there. And then you have it for both, and then you're going to make a single crochet in that. And this will help you keep your work lined up because you know you single crochet 2 big loops together, and then you're going to single crochet the 2 smaller loops together. And that way, if you notice that you're doing a smaller loop and a bigger loop on the different panels, you're going to realize, oh wait, I made a mistake somewhere. You can undo it slightly until you figure out where that is. And that's what you're going to keep doing all the way up until you reach your stitch marker. And for me, my stitch markers, well, they're actually different ones, but I will be ending on the smaller loop, which the first is where this one's in, and then this one's in like the larger one, but I'll be ending in the smaller loop. And I just wanted to show you what that looks like. And now I'm actually going to undo this, and I'm going to be crocheting over my ends, but I didn't want to do that in the beginning, so it was easier for you to see. So just going to go ahead and do that now, and I'll meet you whenever I have reached my stitch marker. And one more note about seaming: make sure that you have your right sides together. And whenever I went to try it on for the and put this in, I think I got it turned around because currently my right sides are facing out, which means the wrong sides are inside. And granted, both sides look really pretty, so I'm just going to leave it as is, but I already finished up this other seam and I don't really want to undo it and do it again. And I also weaved in one of my shoulder part tails. Well, clearly it's not that one. I already weaved in the tail for this. You can kind of see that little guy sticking out. So since I've already done that, I'm just going to continue on as is, but please make sure and know that which side you want facing out, you have your work flipped inside out. So you are making the seam on the inside, unlike me, apparently. Okay, so I've reached my stitch marker and I actually put it in a little wonky. So part of it's in a big loop and then part of it's in the smaller. And I've already seamed up my other side, so I'm just going to copy what I did over there. And I'm going to put a single crochet in the big loop. And then the other one, my stitch marker was in the smaller loop. And I went ahead and I'm just going to put a single crochet inside of here, like on the other side. Then you're going to chain 2, leave a tail long enough to weave in, cut that off, pull it through, and just make sure you're pulling this tight. That way it is not going to come undone on you. And then you're just going to weave in all of your tails. The ones for your side seam should be pretty easy. You can just weave it in the single crochet. But I am going to show you how I weaved in my shoulder seam, or weaved in the tail for it, because I wanted to make sure it was really secure. Because this is, again, a thread of yarn with a bigger hook, so the stitches are bigger and it's not going to be snug and everything and secure like with others if you just weave it in a little bit. So let's find a good angle. Okay, this tail is way too long. Okay, where's my scissors? Okay, there we go. That's more manageable. Okay. So you're just going to find where it's coming out from, and you're going to go in the opposite direction. So I'm going to find some loops to pick up and just kind of go down this way a little bit. Then I'm going to skip this very first loop right here, go under this one and then that one just to kind of help secure it. And then I'm just going to find some more random loops, and I'm just going to work my way over to this. And I like going in between the post of stitches whenever I have thin yarn. And now I'm just going to kind of go underneath of these 3 right here. Then I'm going to skip again, skipping the first one so I'm not like undoing what I just did. And I'm just going to go under those 2, going back up like this, whoop, and then into these post stitches again, or post stitch. There we go. Then I'm just going to work my way back, and I'm going to go to the other side now and do the same thing on another one of these posts right here. Just going to go in some of these loops. Just weaving it in and out. Then go under these 3. Skip that very first one. Kind of go back. Then again, I'm going to skip 1 and go under all 3 again. This is going to be the one where I finish, so I want to make sure I weave this in multiple times to give myself something nice and tight to kind of trim the yarn against, so the little tail I leave doesn't slip around everywhere. And I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. So just going to go in there. And now this is a little bit stiffer because it's got a bunch of loops in it. So I'm just going to kind of go around here. Oop. Come on. I'm going like this. And then I'm going to go under, oh, sorry, that's out of focus. Okay. And then I'm just going to go under all of these. Kind of, it feels like kind of like a knot, and it feels like I'm going in the middle of a knot, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit stiffer, and that is where I'm going to trim it. And I like leaving just a teensy bit out, but still trimming it pretty close. And there you go, that's all finished. I'm just gonna go ahead and weave in my side seams, and then my top will be finished. You could go and add some seam crochets around your armhole and your neckline, but I like leaving mine as is, so that's just an optional thing if you want to do it. Oh, and this is what the seam looks like from the other side. You can flatten it out pretty well. And honestly, I think it looks pretty nice. It's not super noticeable, and it's really easy to do.